And welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to our second part of the series for distance learning. So we're focusing on distance learning for diverse learners. Our first one was providing free and appropriate education to diverse learners. And that was also a great introduction to what is a free and appropriate education and what does that look like now that we're making the transition over to this distance learning format. So part two is the universal design learning, universal design learning, using universal design for learning to make distance learning accessible for all. So we're talking about the framework of universal design, and then how can we use that to make the curriculums that we're using now more accessible for our students. And I have my special guest here, Ms. Jessica Bass, who does a lot of work with universal design for learning. So she'll have an opportunity to just introduce herself, and then we'll get into what we suggest if you're also thinking about incorporating it more into your curriculum and also with your students, and just different resources for making that happen. All righty. And before we get started, please, if you haven't done so, register for our upcoming webinars. We have one next week called Creating Equity in Distance Learning Implementation. The one on April 27th is what all school boards should know about distance learning. And then May 4th, we have Implementing Strong Multi-Tiered Support Systems After Distance Learning. So make sure that you register for those upcoming ones, and I'll also provide those in the follow-up email as well. And for just a quick overview of myself, my name is Gabriella Timothy. I'm a special educator, leader, and consultant with Learn Potential Education Consulting. I founded Learn Potential back in 2017. I've been in the education field for the past 9 years. I've been everything from a special education teacher to a coordinator for the district to a out-of-school time director for a high school in Philadelphia. So I've been, in different areas of education. And my most recent one before I began consulting was a project manager for the charter schools office in Philadelphia. And my focus right now as an education researcher, because I'm also pursuing my doctorate, is in special education, multi-tiered support systems, universal design for learning, and culturally responsive practices. And you can also find me at my email, gabriella.timothy@learnpotential.com, which I'll also make available later on again. And then what is Learn Potential? Learn Potential was established in 2017. It expanded. It originally started with working primarily with schools and families of students with diverse learning needs. And then in 2018, I expanded to working with charter schools in their special education departments, serving schools and have served schools in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, New York, and looking to expand, of course, to the DMV area very soon. Those services include organizational compliance, special education compliance, charter renewal support, parent consulting and training, and we're also expanding to online tutoring services and really just focusing in on helping students personalize learning, helping students understand their learning preferences and build a personalized experience for them with experienced educators. And for more information, make sure you visit our website. All right. So we're going to start off with a quote. And that quote is, "Accessibility allows us to tap into everyone's potential." And that is by Deborah Ruh. And it really it resonates mainly because we want to be able to create access for our students so that way we can really give them the opportunity to live up and really tap into all of their potential. And throughout the variety of ways nowadays that we're creating access, and we want to continue to make it accessible as our students begin to learn, develop, and grow. Our agenda is what is a diverse learner? So we're just going to start off with that because there may be some of us who just need a refresher on what it means to be a diverse learner. And then we're going to talk about the Universal Design for Learning framework. What is that? What does it look like? And some examples as to how we can incorporate it into distance learning. And then, of course, our guest speaker is going to share ideas and insight as to her experience with using the Universal Design Learning Framework and also educating others on it. And then, of course, answering those questions. So throughout the presentation, please make sure to add any questions into the chat box. And we want to make sure we're answering all of those questions as we go on. All right, so diverse learners, we're going to start off with that. What is a diverse learner? A diverse learner, the definition was included in the 2010 the new Elementary and Secondary Education Act, which is now the Every Student Succeeds Act as of 2015. But in the 2010 Act, it was described as students with disabilities, migrant students, homeless students, neglected delinquent students, Native American students, and students in high need and rural areas. So those are what we would consider diverse learners. And to summarize, we would say students from racially, ethnically, culturally, and linguistically diverse families and communities of lower socioeconomic statuses. And then also, of course, students who learn differently from the majority. So if you were to summarize what a diverse learner is, then we would just say anyone who is different in some way, has had different experiences, and we want to always make sure that we're including that when we think about how we're building out our education practices and how we're building out curriculums for our diverse learners. And so we're going to start off with a quick poll question. And that question is, how does your school engage diverse learner? So think about a school that you may work at, a school that your child may attend. We want to think about what does your school, oh, sorry, wrong poll. No, not that one. I'm going to close out of this one. My apologies. I believe it's the first one. All right. So this poll says, how does your school engage diverse learners? And it is you type in your response. It could be one sentence. It could be a phrase, but just a way that your school currently right now is engaging your students who learn differently. Think about your students, your English language learners, or your students with disabilities, or students that have foster homes and so on. What are some things that your schools are doing to work with those diverse learners or engage those diverse learners? So I am going to close out the poll. Thank you for voting. All right, let me share those results. Let's see if it actually shares out. All right, this one is share. All right. I think everyone can see. Okay. So we're going to, at the end, I'll go back in and look at those because I feel because it's an open-ended question, it may read differently, but I will have some multiple choice. But majority of us if I don't know if someone can see. If you can see the answers, it might look differently from what I'm seeing. Let me know, or you can type in a chat box. Okay, thank you, Jess. She's typing in now. Okay, you can see the results. All right. I don't know why I can't see it. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing the results and see maybe. I'm going to close it out. I'm going to go in and I am going to. Okay. All right. All right. So instead of that, because that one has technical difficulties, if you can just type your response in the chat box and I'll be able to see it. And we're just going to keep moving with that. My apologies for that. So the question was related to engaging our diverse learners. It is a school's priority to always make sure that we are, okay, thank you, Jess, that providing virtual office hours. So one of the ways we want to make sure that we're reaching all students is that we want to give them the opportunity to reach educators. So some schools right now are providing virtual office hours, which is great. Thank you. Daphne said we use technology like tablets and iPads. So embracing technology, allowing students different opportunities to show what they know or access the content in different ways. Those are just a variety of ways. And thank you, Beta, for small group pullouts. So using small group pullouts, giving diverse learners an opportunity to learn in a smaller setting, which can work wonders for students who just may need that more intimate setting in order to really thrive. Thank you, everyone, for answering the poll. Sorry about the technical difficulty. So the next part we're going to talk about is the Universal Design for Learning framework and why we believe that is incredibly important to really engaging our diverse learners, especially now that we are in a distance learning format. So the Universal Design Learning Framework is a framework to improve and optimize teaching and learning for all people based on scientific insight into how humans learn. And this is from CAST, which does a lot of research with, and I'm Jessica, you can correct me if I'm going to say it wrong, but the Center for Applied Scientific Technology.
Yes.
Okay, yay, got it. All right. Because I'm always saying like adding in different words. So CAS does a lot of research for universal design for learning, and they focus on what are ways that the brain takes in information, processes information, and how can we make sure that we are educating our students in a way that appeals to that variety, because everyone, learns in a different way. The framework is a guide for the development of flexible learning environments and learning spaces that can accommodate individual learning differences. And the three areas, and just areas, am I saying that?
Three areas are
Areas, okay.
engagement. They're the three principles.
Okay, principles. Thank you so much. The three principles are engagement, representation, and action and expression. I always want to make sure I say I want to say it correctly. Jess is the expert, and in a minute she'll definitely, give you a little more insight about her. But I'm going to refer to her back and forth because she's been very pivotal in just helping me understand the Universal Design for Learning framework, and we've done a lot of research together on it. So yeah, thank you. Thanks, Jess. So the three principles: engagement, representation, and action and expression. So engagement meaning the UDL encourages teachers to look for multiple ways to motivate students. So how are we motivating our students, engaging them in the work that we're doing, hooking them, giving them opportunities to really build their background knowledge on what it is that we're asking them to either learn or report on, or how are we engaging them in the content. So representation is how do we represent the information? So UDL recommends you offer information in more than one format. So we don't only want to just say, hey, we're going to show you this in one way and then that's it. We want to give you a variety of ways because, again, we all process information differently. So one way may work for another. And then if you show them that second or third way, that will likely appeal to the other students that have different ways of processing information. And then we have action and expression. And UDL suggests giving students more than one way to interact with the material and to show what they have learned. So not only saying, do this and you write a report, but giving them other ways, maybe make a song or make a dance or put together a picture of something that they have learned throughout the lesson. And then, so this is just talking about ways. So this is just an overview of the guidelines. So UDL, I believe, just is it the 8 guidelines?
There's 9 guidelines.
9 guidelines, thank you. 9 guidelines, and I've pulled out the main, not main ones, but I just pulled out a few ones that we can focus right now on when we think about really implementing it in what our students are learning. So the recruiting interest, guideline 7, is where we want to engage our learners and spark excitement in curriculum. So when we talk about that, we talk about optimizing their choice. So empowering them to take charge of what they're learning. We also want to talk about connecting their learning experiences, connecting learning to experiences that are meaningful and valuable to them, and also just minimizing the distractions and the threat. So giving them a safe space to learn and take risks, ask questions, make mistakes. That's how we want to create those ways to engage our learners. And here are some ways. So as I go through, I'm going to share some tools for engaging. So if you are teaching currently, or if you're a parent, these are resources that you can use for these specific areas. So for example, we have Nearpod, which is an engagement tool, and it gives teachers a way to broadcast information, present the information and quizzes, and you can upload pictures, you can ask them questions. So it really gives you a lot of leeway in how you present the information to the students and how they interact with the information. We also have examples like Peer Deck and Socratic, and those are other great tools to look up when you're thinking about, hey, what are some tools to really engage my student or my child in what they're learning? So the next part is representation, and that guideline 1 talks about perception and interacting with flexible content that doesn't depend on just one single sense. So not only sight, not only hearing, not only movement, not only touch, but variety of it. So just being flexible to be able to move back and forth between those different areas. So the next one, we talk about offering ways for customizing how you display the information. So using flexible materials with settings that can be adjusted based on the needs, offering alternatives for auditory information and also visual information. So giving them different ways to move between the ways that the information is presented. So if you're giving them a song to listen to, then so let's talk about like reading a book. And we can say we're going to present you with the audiobook and the words. Then maybe we can turn the book or turn something from the book into a song. Just different ways to engage the learners and all of their senses. And movement, of course, is always it's always a great way to get your learners that are more, kinesthetic and just want to like touch or feel or tie something to a movement. So we want to represent it in different ways. Representation. So this is going to be recorded, so you'll be able to get this information. So these are different ways to represent information. So if you have your learners who have trouble reading on screen, then you have some screen reading tools. So you have voiceover that reads to them. You have talkback, which is very similar, but they may not have like the Braille option if you have a student that's visually impaired. For our student that like text to speech tools, you have the speech selection where you can, like they click over it and it reads to them, Announcify. So there are just many platforms for representing information to students. It says here are some tools that use visual strategies. So you can draw and create almost anything you want there, and Poplet is very similar. So if you want to create something and you want to draw it out to present it to the student, then these are platforms that they can use, that you can use, and also they can use too. All right, so we have action and expression, which is the third principle, and it focuses on composing and sharing ideas using tools that can help attain learning goals. So multiple ways of express learning in flexible ways. So we talked about you don't necessarily have to write a paper, but you can draw something, you can make a movie, you can make a song. You have different ways to express that you have learned, that you have understood what was being taught. Using multiple tools. So we want to present them with multiple tools to use. And then 5.3 also talks about building fluencies with graduated levels of support. So we want to apply and even show them how to do it, and then support them throughout until they can do it independently. And then here are some tools for that. So video, I use iMovie a lot because I do a lot of videos. Clips is like the very basic version of it. iMovie's, a little more practice first, and then you get into iMovie, and then you have Studio, TouchCast Studio. So it's like gradual level. The more experience and the more they enjoy it, you can introduce them to different ways of that. There's audio where students can make songs. There's a book creator where you can turn what you've learned into a book. So these are just a few tools for students who they're not the paper to pencil students. They're just like, okay, here's another way that you can show us what you've learned, and just express yourself really. And here are some tools to do so. And the last part of this piece, we talk about flexibility and distance learning. So pictures for representing information, you can do pictures, videos, phone, audio, songs, dance, engagement. You can do class, school, social media accounts, class challenges, phone calls, morning messages, and these are tied to teachers, but also for parents as well. And then action and expression, encourage students to draw, write poems, write songs, do a dance, do a video, do a talk to test, do a social post of something that they've learned. And these are just a summary of some things that can be done, because obviously we can always get creative and do many more things when we talk about working with our students. So for this one, we're going to do the chat box again. And I believe because it's an open-ended. And the question is, what strategies is your school, I think we did this one already. What strategies is your school using to engage learners? Okay, yeah. So the first one was diverse learners. And just think about any strategies outside of what we did. What strategies is your school using to just engage all learners? Think about, are they doing phone calls? Are they doing social posts have they created a social media account? Are they doing any of these things? And we can type that in and talk about it, or some suggestions. Okay, Schoology. So some schools are using Schoology, which is a great platform for keeping everyone and sharing information and posting information. So Schoology, thanks Jess for sharing that. We're gonna move on to the next one. And so before we get into that piece, we're just gonna talk about some quick examples of 5 easy examples for distance learning that you can use right away. And the first example is posting lesson goals. And having goals help students know what they're working to achieve. So in your classrooms or your students' classrooms, the teachers or the parents can be just posting the daily goal. Like, what do we want you to achieve today? And how are we achieving it? What are we doing? What are some of the activities that we're doing? We want to help students just be aware of what they're working towards, and then of course supporting them on how to get there. Multiple assignment options is number 2. So with UDL, there are multiple options for students to show what they've learned. And students may be able to create a podcast. They may be able to do a video. They may do a comic strip. Just a variety of ways to show what they've learned. So that's another one. So posting the lesson goals, number 1. 2, multiple assignment options. Number 3 is regular feedback. So we want to always make sure that we are providing regular feedback to our students. We can talk to them over the phone if it's a distance, if you are a teacher, or of course, like if you're a parent, giving your child feedback as they're completing their assignments, or just if they need feedback on a lesson or have questions. So providing them with the feedback on those specific assignments. Digital and audio text. Number 5. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I skip 5? 1 is goals. 2 is multiple assignment options. 3, oh, sorry, I skipped 3. Flexible workspaces. So promoting flexibility in the learning environment. So encourage students to complete assignments using items or places around their house. So you don't only have to do it at the work at the kitchen table or work at the desk. You can work here. You can do a scavenger hunt. You can do like find different spaces to work and also to explore. So UDL does encourage just the flexible spaces to do work, to create work, to just really engage the students. So that was number 3. Number 4 was the regular feedback. I skipped that. I skipped number 3. And number 5 was digital and audio text. So UDL recognizes that if students can't access information, they can't learn it. So in a UDL classroom, materials and materials are accessible for all types of learners. So give options for reading, including print, digital text-to-speech, and audio books. All right, thank you, Beta. She added in that class craft audio. Okay, awesome. So her schools are using Classcraft, Adobe, Spark Video, which is great. I use that a lot. Google Classroom, YouTube, Science 360. Those are great resources and tools to use. And I think this will help parents organize new expectations at home. Awesome. And thank you, Daphne, for your comment. I think this would help parents organize new expectations at home, definitely. So using these formats, helping them understand where they are helping them understand students' learning of the vida. My apologies. Helping them understand their learning preferences and how they best learn. Those are great ways to help our students approach their learning and embrace their distance learning experience, because it is an experience for all of us, a new experience for many of us. All right, so that was just the 5 touch points for that, and a special guest. Miss Jessica Bass. She is going to introduce herself, and I know we're like, who is she? Because we've been talking back and forth. But she'll introduce herself and just give some of her experience and insight on how to best use universal design learning for students. Thank you, Jess.
So, my name is Jessica Bass, and I'm currently an instructional coach at the University of Delaware at the Center for Disability Studies. I've worked as a special education teacher in elementary school as well as middle school, even high school. I've been a special education coordinator as well as an educational diagnostician. Um, Now my focus is on UDL, the 1% cap, which deals with the federal law for the alternate assessment, and then also the dynamic learning maps, which are the alternate achievement standards. So today, Gabby did a wonderful job focusing on UDL. My experience with UDL has really changed me professionally and also what I encourage teachers to do. The current work that we are working on deals with resources for parents and also for teachers. A big thing that Gabby said that's very important with UDL, and that is the base of UDL, is clear and flexible goals. I know that we are going through something that we've never gone through before, but we do have those skills to create effective lessons, and it starts with our goals. So we still need to be planning lessons, it's just a different format that we're teaching. In that, the way we represent the information is key. Currently, my kids have access to videos on YouTube. They also have Schoology that has videos that reteach what the teacher has said over Zoom. So the opportunity to reteach and reinforce skills and information is a big thing now. We have the opportunity to do that because we're not running from class to class. We're not dealing with the time constraints of being in a building. So that really helps. Gabby mentioned flexible seating. This is very important to push your students. Have them change rooms while you're doing lessons or each day that you're doing a lesson. Let's go in your bedroom and sit on your favorite chair, or let's bring your pet in so the child is sitting on the couch with the pet. That has been really good of what I've experienced and the advice that we've given parents. For engagement, it's very key to know that students may not be able to attend to the screen. I know they like TV and they may like video games, but it is difficult to attend to the screen for a large amount of time. So it is definitely important to break up any of your lessons that can go over a course of a few days. I also do work with students with significant disabilities. So even in that, giving them like switches and ways to interact with the teacher and with the information that's being presented. Um, Action expression, I think virtual learning is a great format for. You have districts that may not have all the technology, so they're providing paper and pencil packets, but it's also pushing them to use their resources that they do have to get these laptops and um, tablets and iPads. I actually have experience with a school, Eastside Charter School, which actually had laptops donated to them and had a period of where parents could come and pick up their laptops and also get guidance dealing with internet connections and those type of services. So schools and districts are being very creative, and teachers can be as well, especially with how they want the child to know, show what they know. Another strategy that I think is very simple but does so much is shared reading. With the little time that you have with the students virtually, it's a good way of incorporating reading and even writing, and just keeping the students engaged that way. If you have diverse learners that have significant cognitive disabilities, there's a resource that gives you adapted text. It's called Tar Heel Reader, and that's through the University of North Carolina, their Center for Literacy and Disability Studies. Um, right now, I can't think of anything else unless you have any questions. The spelling of Tar Heel Reader. Okay,
Mhm.
I'm gonna type that in.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, I have a little accent. Sorry, from the Midwest.
Cincinnati. Is that
Yeah.
how you say it?
If you are in Delaware, there's a lot of professional development opportunities through the Center for Disability Studies and the Access Project, where I currently work. That's on PDMS. And there's a series of trainings or webinars dealing with UDL and online learning, and they give a lot of resources. If that's something that you're interested in and you live in Delaware and you're in the educational system of Delaware, just know that PDMS provides those trainings for clock hours. I know a lot of districts are requiring their teachers, educators to have clock hours.
Awesome. Thank you, Jess. All
Thank
right.
you, Christy.
So Jess and I have done a lot of work together on universal design learning. And so I owe a lot of my knowledge to our work together. Because I remember just coming to you and just being like, "This is a great framework. Tell me more," and us diving into that. So the more I worked on it, the more I researched it, the more I saw that, like you said before, Jeff, like this is just great, practices and a framework for how do we make sure that we incorporate those so that way we can really reach all students. And so now that we're in this distance learning format, it is incredibly important that we don't forget about our students who learn, have their learning differences, and our students who may have challenges as well when it comes to um, traditional formats for learning. We want to make sure we make things accessible to all students. So thank you so much, Jess, for your insight. Um,
There's a comment in the
oh, okay,
box.
great. So any recommendations for children with social skill issues while social distancing? Peers don't want to talk on the phone, they will text. Okay, so any recommendations for children with social skills issues while okay. Um, do you if you mean like practicing if you mean like practicing social interactions outside of texting, then let me know if I'm correct. Practicing because of course, like, oh, okay, great, thank you. So how do we, because our students are not in the classrooms anymore, right? They're not in the lunchrooms. They're not interacting with their friends as much as they were when they were in school. So we want to continue to build those social interactions. So, Jess, do you have? I can add in some, but do you have any that you currently are using? Because I know that you have your two children right now who are so.
So, yeah, so so my son is he prefers to work alone and be alone. My daughter is more of a social butterfly. She likes to interact with people. Something that I have seen and I really like is the ability to break up your class into small groups.
Mhm.
And the teacher, the educator, whoever can give a question or a small little like puzzle type of thing for the kids to solve or do something with, but break them out into groups. And the
Mhm.
facilitator can go in and out of groups, just to listen in and how they're talking, how they're doing that. There's also if you're talking about specific social skills, especially when you're talking about IEPs.
Mhm.
There's definitely stories that you can get, videos. YouTube is a great resource. If you have, you can build your own social stories and use those as read alouds and have the kids once again break up into small groups, breakout rooms, and kind of discuss different things.
Okay. I agree. And I've used the breakout rooms too because I'm doing my program, my doctorate program is now online. So we're doing the breakout rooms too, which I thought were pretty cool because you were able to be in small groups with your friends and interact that way. So I think like Jess mentioned, there are ways to take like if they're friends and they usually interact during text, then there are ways to schedule some time where they can do something all together. A group assignment, not a group assignment. I want to say assignment because then it's gonna make the kids feel like, oh, it's work. But it's like a group activity together with their friends to interact outside of just the texting. Because again, I know our parents worry about just the whole texting and we want to be able to have those authentic interactions while we're not able to do that physically. So thank you, Jess, for that. So those are just different ways. Like while they're in the classroom, if you are a parent of a student that has um, like using the classroom. Like you have teachers who are using Zoom right now or Google Classroom. So those are ways that the students can interact with their peers. But outside of that, yes, like creating those activities or experiences with their friends, so that way they can still have that interaction outside of the texting. uh, so we're gonna move on to, and then please keep the questions going as we go. We're just going to go into some flexible learning activities that are currently being done. This was from the previous presentation last week. So I just repurposed it because, of course, it really can be continuously used because we're learning and growing in this distance learning experience. So for curriculum, there are online instruction platforms that many schools are using. Some schools are also using the weekly packets that are delivered through email or through snail mail, like Daphne said, she likes snail mail. The ongoing projects, so some schools do a project. So one of the difficulties that we'll speak about next week too when we talk about equity is ensuring that there are ways to reach every student all the time, and many school districts are realizing that, yes, that is a challenge. So school districts have done projects where students they have a culminating project at the end and maybe a schedule as to where they are with completing this project. And the project may have a variety of tasks. So reading tasks, math tasks, some social studies and some science incorporated in it. So just trying to touch on all of the areas and of course having an end project at the end. So some schools are doing they call it project-based learning, and that's another uh, universal design for learning really supports the project-based learning format as well because you can incorporate different learning styles and different ways of representing information, and also different ways of presenting the information all into one project. Teacher phone calls are great. Teachers connect with students on a weekly basis. Some school districts are doing daily. Read aloud. Some teachers are reading aloud books, on a call with their students. Providing consultations with parents, so calling in parents, because again, we are working together to identify our students' strengths, and we want to help, teachers spend a lot of time with our students in the classroom, so they'll have a lot of valuable in input on how our students are learning and processing information. So it's great to have those consultations as regularly as possible. If it could be on a weekly basis, that's great, monthly basis, however, but having those consultations are very helpful. And then, of course, assignments and support. So those phone calls can also be used to help with assignments and homework. Virtual meetings. I know a lot of our schools are doing virtual meetings at this point, and they can be instructional meetings, they can be meetings with parents, and they can also be IEP meetings. I'm currently doing a few. I have a few scheduled this week. I had a few scheduled last week, but virtual IEP meetings are the format that many of us are adapting or adopting right now. School home schedule. So building a schedule for your students and synchronizing it in some way to their school schedule. It won't exactly be perfect, but at least it can fit in some of if your student is great in the mornings with reading and math, then scheduling time for that in the morning. If they prefer afternoon, then scheduling time for that, but making sure that those schedules are flexible, but trying to keep them as consistent. And of course, we want to adjust as needed, because maybe after a few days, we're like, you know what, this schedule isn't working. But that's the good thing about building a schedule. You can make adjustments for what works for the students, as well as what works for the teachers and the parents.
And Gabby,
Yeah.
my son actually for schedule, he
Mm-hmm.
actually switches class
No.
like you would do in middle school. So he'll have a class and a transition break and then go to another class. And he's actually in school until 2 o'clock
Oh, nice.
because they do all the transitions and he has electives. So they still do PE, they still do a foreign language, and they still do, I want to say art. They still do art that way.
Thanks. That's yeah. See, and then I think it's great for the students because they need something.
Yeah.
Everything is kind of like changed all out of the blue. So having schedules like that are great to help them find some kind of consistency. Uh, and then of course, like trying to incorporate that as well as home, because some schools may not have a schedule, but if the parents can build one together at home, that can benefit everyone. Miss Fida said, my daughter records her reading assignments on her phones and text. Oh, that's great. So if she records the reading assignments and texts them over, that's a great way to listen to her fluency. And that's a great way to also give her a different task. Because if you're recording something, a lot of times we are much, we try harder, we practice because we want our recording to to sound great. So I think that's a great activity that parents can incorporate too. So thank you for sharing that, Vita. And our next one, we talk about the strategies. So these are just some quick strategies that we have for variety. So if you have a student that has learning differences, we have daily practice skills, because those are incredibly important for all students. Teacher consults on a skill, and using at-home resources to teach skills. So the comfort of our own home, there's a lot of things that we can incorporate. And if we have our outdoor spaces as well, so we can go outdoor and do like a science project or a scavenger hunt or some type of activity that incorporates their reading and math skills. So using the in-home, the backyard, the basement, or all of your resources to teach different skills are great strategies for students. Our blind and visually impaired students, teachers can read or parents can read a book to them. If you want your teacher to also read over the phone, they can do that as well. For some students, we have our deaf of hard of hearing students, where lessons can be recorded with closed captions. And that can be sent home to families so that way the students can visually read the lesson and be able to present or express what they've learned in a variety of ways as well. And then even some students that may have orthopedic impairments and they need physical therapists. That can be a way where the physical therapist can share pictures and videos of physical activities that they may be practicing with the student, and the student can record themselves actually um, engaging in that activity or skill and sharing that as well. So we can incorporate technology in a variety of ways so that way we can uh,
And
gauge our
also, if the student has a device, a communication device,
yeah.
just really push the parent to use it at home. And
Hmm.
it may take some time to teach the parent,
Hmm.
but usually they already know how to use it.
Hmm.
Also, there are some issues with districts treating devices, communication devices, as the tech that's needed, like the laptop or the iPad, like using it for school.
Hmm.
So just, advocate for yourself as a parent to say, no, we need an addition, um, something else, because the communication device should be used for communication and things like that. So just just to put it out there.
Thank you, Jess. Definitely. Um, And then documenting. So this part is mainly for our educators, but also families. Please make sure that you're documenting as much need as needed. And then a log that was presented to teachers for documenting is this particular one here, where we talk about the date. What is our focus goal? Who is providing the practice on these goals? How was the service provided? Is it through Zoom? Is it through Google Hangout? And then, of course, like what accommodations were being used? Any unique tailoring, students' response. So this is a way of tracking information, and of course, parents can do it in a way that is beneficial for them. But we want to make sure that we are tracking our students and how well they're doing on their goals. And this part also was a repurpose from last week, and it's about ways to uplift our children. And there are a variety of ways. So quotes are great, providing a daily quote of inspiration for our students. Videos, funny or inspirational videos to get them laughing, get them thinking, get them motivated. We want to, incorporate games and challenges, something to get them, fired up. Like, hey, can you, do this or post this, or how many of these can you do? To something to get them motivated. Something of familiarity. So Jess spoke about her son's schedule being very similar to the one that he's doing in middle school. So just different ways to keep some familiarity, even though they're learning in a different environment, is beneficial for students. Being present is incredibly important because we want to make sure that we're there for ourselves, for our students, and of course, smiling, providing a smile, let them know that it's okay and we'll definitely get through this. This is a interesting and unique time, but we're all in this together and we're learning as we go, and helping them, know that you're there to support them. And of course, in turn, they'll be there to support you as well, as children always are, especially when we need them the most. They can be our biggest support systems. So those are just ways that we can uplift our students throughout this process. And some of our resources. So these the Center for Applied Special Technology, was where I got my information from in regards to Universal Design for Learning, and the programs mentioned were a list of these, and then also I can share this in addition to their websites in a follow up with our audience. And for more information, you would visit learnpotential.com. And the webinars, the last webinar is posted up there as well, in addition to blogs, and links for resources are included on the website. So we're going to open up to some more questions and answers if they are any, but we do invite everyone to our weekly webinars, which will be on Mondays. The next one is about equity. So if you're able to make it Monday at 1 o'clock, next Monday at 1 o'clock, we're going to have a discussion about providing equitable resources for our students during this time, because that is a hot topic, as we all know. And many of us are very blessed to have many resources and technology and access, and many of us aren't. So it's great to understand ways that we can provide our distance learning format in more equitable ways for all students. And special thanks to everyone for attending and for tuning in and for registering. And we will conclude if we don't have any more questions. All righty. Thanks so much, Des, for being a part of this. Again, like I said, you've been so awesome in this whole journey of understanding the universal design for learning framework and an educational framework in general. And if anyone doesn't know that, Jess and I used to teach together. So she was my mentor teacher, and that's how we met. And we've been like two peas in the pod ever since through this
Thank you for
education.
having me.
No, thank you. Thank you for being here. And I look forward to seeing everybody next week. I think we have some more. We have another message. Also, thank you. Daphne says she learned some new things today. Thank you guys. And I hope, please keep in contact. I'll definitely send a follow-up email to everyone registered. And if you have any more questions, just feel free to respond that way. And we're going to keep this conversation going. All right, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye. All right, so I think I'm going to